What's going on, everybody? Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Kieran and I try to help people using a spiritual perspective. So today I am standing up, which is amazing. It's fun. It's like sitting down, except your legs aren't folded. So try it out if you ever get a chance. I'm here to do a video about depression. Okay, so it's a hard topic, actually. You think it's very easy to just talk about if you've ever experienced any type of depression, but it's actually kind of hard because there's a lot of different factors, and I'd be the first to say that I'm not aware of all of them. There's definitely, I don't want to talk about any chemicals or any severe mental disorders, because some of that stuff is true, some of it isn't. If you do research about it, you'll find out that claims that, your depression is based on chemicals in the brain has been widely debunked as a myth, and yet, at the same time, you can find a bunch of different articles that still suggest something of the same, right? So it's a very hard thing to try and get into, and that's kind of what I mean, is that there's probably factors about depression that I'm not personally aware of. I don't have a degree in depression, if that was a thing. If you can go to college and get a degree in depression, I don't know what that would look like. Probably how much weed could you smoke in a semester would probably get you at least a bachelor's in depression, but I'm not, I don't have a degree in that. I don't have a degree in anything, actually. But regardless, I am qualified to talk about the process. So when I say spiritual perspective, when I start these videos by saying I'm Kieran and I like helping people using a spiritual perspective, well, that idea is just, I almost choked. That idea is to take something that I've been through personally and apply that now to a deeper meaning, something that may help us discover more about ourselves, right? So this video is essentially titled How to Cure Depression. Okay, now obviously the cure is going to be in parentheses, sort of quotations, because, like I said, there's lots of factors that I don't know, and maybe this works, maybe this doesn't for you, the individual watching, but it has helped me as somebody who has spent the majority of his life, at least as long as I can remember, because I don't remember much from my childhood, so as long as I can remember from maybe my mid to late teens, depressed to some degree, right? Other times it's been up, sometimes it's been down. By that I mean sometimes it's been worse, sometimes it's been better. But regardless, this is close to my heart, something that I've experienced quite a bit. So depression itself, right? So there's a lot of videos and articles that will talk about depression being basically a deep rest, right? So that's all true and that's all great, but that's not really what I want to get into, right? The idea behind depression is that it's something that's happened to you already. Okay, so if you're sad about something, just sad, it probably has happened recently. Let's say you didn't get the job that you wanted, someone, said something that was rude, right? They called you a giraffe. I don't know why that would make you upset, but sometimes, things do. And for whatever reason, they've insulted you or something happened, right? You feel sad. Just like somebody insults you, you feel angry, or, something good happens, you feel happy. Okay, so all these emotions are essentially happening at a pretty quick rate and usually pretty close to the event that caused whatever emotions, okay? So depression, on the other hand, is something that's already been going on within you, okay? So what I mean by this is it's something that has been, the foundation has been laid down already. So it's like you were sad and the sadness is buried. So it's continued to exist. So it's like depression is almost sadness, divided by, sadness divided by repression equals, over time or something equals time. It's like sadness over time equals repression, something, but the idea, of course, is that it's a thing that stays with you, right? It stays with you for a long period of time. So ultimately, when we feel depressed about something, what's happening is we're feeling depressed about things that we've already experienced that are still with us, often from childhood. It doesn't necessarily have to be childhood, but these are things that are going on for years, okay? And even now, when we do go through things that make us feel depressed, sometimes we're not even aware that the emotions that we're carrying are responses to what has in the outer world affected us, made us feel depressed, are still coming from childhood, right? These are the way that we deal with our emotions. Some of us, like myself, are more likely to ignore them, push them aside, stuff them deep down, right? So it's a hard process for someone that's depressed to try and get in touch with that again, because the emotions that have been heavy weighing you down, which we could perceive to be negative, have been with us since maybe 9, 8, 7 years old, maybe earlier than that, maybe even a little later, right? But ultimately, what is true is that the feeling has been with us for a long time. So when you feel depressed, there is this pressure to get better, because a lot of us know what we should be doing, and we try to come up with plans and schemes to get to that place, to get to a place where we are better again, where we're healed, right? This goal in mind of, we're depressed and we're trying to get to this goal of not depressed, right? But I think in the case of emotions, trying to cure your depression that way often doesn't work. And I think that's because depression is an emotional issue. It's not necessarily a life issue. It's not really because X, Y, and Z happened in your life, you're depressed, okay? Your depression is more of an emotional pool that, for whatever reason, you cannot really get out of. You're still sort of stuck in that pool. Maybe you feel like you're drowning some days. Other days, maybe you just can't get your feet out of the water. But the point is, it's sort of this pool that's always filled, and you can't really get away from it. It doesn't really matter how much logic you try to tell yourself, the feeling sort of remains there. So trying to treat depression as this sort of linear process is a very difficult thing to do, because your brain tries to come up with ways in which to get out of your depression. Try this, do this, go here, okay? And a lot of times stuff doesn't work, right? And this isn't me saying, don't try therapy, don't try any of these methods, but in my experience, a lot of these methods don't work because I've treated it like a goal, right? Not depressed is a goal of mine. And when it's a goal, you try to use your energy in a way that could be perceived as masculine. You try to use your energy in a way that is steps. Step A, step B, step C, and you try to take things on logically. You try to do things. Well, I know I should be eating more. I know I should be exercising. I bet that would help me not feel depressed. So you try some rigorous new diet, some planned out exercise, and it doesn't necessarily work. Maybe it does for a couple weeks. But if you're depressed, you probably struggle with discipline. You probably struggle with sticking to something and consistently doing it, right? So trying to use methods that you know are intelligent and logical don't often work because they're going against your feelings, which are ultimately more important, more meaningful than your thoughts. Okay, thoughts are just chatter in your head, okay, so to speak, just different sorts of animals, just talking, birds, crickets, whatever, it doesn't really matter too much what it is that they're saying. However, in the grand scheme of things, your emotions are ultimately the most powerful thing within you, excluding, I suppose, the essence of what you are, but your emotions are the thing that makes you take action towards anything. That's your emotions, right? So when you're depressed, you lack an available access to this. You lack a free-flowing sort of wave, okay? It's like, again, taking that pool example, it's like a pool that isn't being filtered. It's just, some hotel pool that hasn't really been cleaned. So it's water, it's dirty, and it's kind of mucky, and there's leaves on top, and for some reason you just can't get away, right? And it's because this is something that has been with you, right? In order to get away from it, you kind of need to drain the pool. So oftentimes, when I feel depressed, trying to logic my way out of it doesn't work, okay? Even though it is smart, it can help to create goals sometimes in life, because then you do it one by one, you focus on one thing. But I think for the people that are depressed, maybe not everybody, but for the majority of us who are depressed or feel depression or have been depressed or still struggle with some type of deeper sadness that could be called depression, I think that stuff just doesn't work, because in my experience anyway, it's like trying to force yourself to do something that you don't really feel like doing, which is hard. And if you probably have numerous examples from your own life where if you don't feel like doing something, you're not going to do it. And depression is all about the feeling. So I think that focusing on stuff like, diet, exercise, maybe like journaling, going to a therapist. You could try spiritual methods. You could try spiritual medicines, right? You can go to a shaman, pay $600 for some ayahuasca, hoping that would get you out of your depression. And yet what I've seen more often than not, and again in my case, is you sort of feel good for a little bit and then you kind of crash again and you feel exactly the same, and nothing really did change. I've been to these shamans and stuff like that, tried these different types of things in an effort to heal myself, so to speak. And nothing happened, nothing changed. Maybe that's me, maybe that's them, but for whatever reason it didn't work with me. And primarily I credit the fact that it didn't work simply because it seemed like a shortcut. And so logic is often trying to create these goals and these shortcuts in order for us to get to the place where we think then, well, if I can get to this place of not being depressed, I will be happy, my life will be better, I can move on, right? There's this bird outside staring at me. It's pretty weird. He's a champ, though. He looks like a champ. He's a cool guy. But it's like a roadrunner or something. Anyway, so depression, right? Enough about birds. Is hard enough to go through, right? Hard enough to try and make sense out of. So when it comes to our own feelings, the best thing we can do is just face life as feelings. Just face life as it is within our emotional world. So to put it in another way, if you're depressed, focusing on trying to make your life better probably won't work. I think two birds are having sex. I think that's what's going on, actually. This has been an exciting development here in California. Two birds having sex outside my window. Well, I hope that there is at least some form of consent. I doubt it, strongly doubt it. But as far as our video is concerned, depression. When it comes to trying to fix your life, it always seems to end up delaying things. You try to fix, you try to, there's so much pressure already within life, basically. There's already so much pressure. Bills, things you have to do, people you have to meet, jobs you don't really want to work, and so on and so on. And the depression is there beneath the surface. So these things get worse, basically. Our shitty, I don't want to say our shitty lives, but the things that we do that are less than ideal feel much worse because of this underlying thing going on. So we try to fix our lives when we feel depressed. It's a natural, logical thing to do. We try to come up with things. We try to use our energy in a masculine way. We try to go, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And you set forth into the wild, into the wilderness to try and create a new version of yourself. But you fall flat on your face a lot of the time. A lot of the time. Not every time, but a lot of the time. Because, again, it's an emotional thing. So if you're trying to cure your depression, while you may find it initially sort of resonant to basically go out there and try all this different stuff, to come up with these plans, these schemes, your mind coming up with these goals, oftentimes you're led straight back to the root of the issue, which is just how you feel. So your depression has been with you for a long time, and yet we try, when we become aware of this depression, when we really want to change it, we try to go and do something in the physical. But depression is asking for you to not fix your life. There's nothing really wrong with your life. Even if you're depressed and you don't find enjoyment in a lot of things, and there's lots of stuff in your life that is maybe being affected by your emotional state, there's nothing really wrong with your life, okay? Because from someone looking on the outside, they would not feel the same about your life as you do. So if that is true, which it absolutely is, then your life is obviously only a representation of how you feel, right? So your perspective, which may be filled with negativity, thoughts of suicide, your emotions are heavy, you feel depressed, there could be lots of stuff going on within your body. You still that is still being perceived by you, okay? So no one else can share that same perspective necessarily, okay? People might empathize, they might sympathize, they might understand, they might offer their help, but nobody can really live that depression for you. Even if they too are depressed, they still cannot face your emotions. They cannot deal with that, right? That's not what's happening. And neither can you, because that's why we're depressed. We're depressed because at some point we did not learn how to we did not learn how to handle our emotions. We didn't learn what to do with them. So the best way to cure your depression is to not focus on the outside, to not focus on the world out there, but to focus in here. To not try and do things necessarily, but allow the things to be done as a symptom of what you've chosen to give yourself, which is essentially time and space. If you're depressed, the best thing you can do is focus in on your emotional world, how you're feeling, how you would like to feel, what you haven't felt, what you have definitely felt before, and to make space for all of it within you. And that to me is healing, is this sort of idea of allowing oneself to feel, to be uncomfortable or comfortable with ourselves, to sit and hold space for the things that we have basically been living with for the majority of our lives. So just because we want to change now, we realize it now, that doesn't mean that suddenly just coming up with all these goals and all of these distinctions and giving ourselves directions is necessarily going to help. They definitely have positive impacts, right? I don't want to say that exercise or diet isn't going to help you feel better, but it helps you feel better as a result of something else, not necessarily just because it's exercise and diet, right? People say that as if it's the cure to depression, but if you're depressed, then you know that you don't feel like doing those things. And then even when you do, maybe you screw up by going home and eating a bunch of stuff, So it goes beyond just actions that you take, okay? Trying to cure your depressions based on action alone is a very difficult thing to do. I think you can definitely push yourself very, very far with that. But in my experience, no matter how much I've tried to push, no matter how much energy and decision making and the sort of authoritative vibe that I would try to create to get myself to do these things, it wouldn't actually help my depression, because inevitably a week or two later I would sort of crash and fall and I'd feel worse than I did before. Because what's being asked of you, your higher self, what's being asked of this deepness, this real presence within you, what's being asked is not for you to go forth and do everything, to try and push through your feelings to create this life that you have imagined, the life that you think you should be living. Because the reality is you're living the life that you are living, and that life is filled with sadness, depression, and beauty as well. I think to be depressed is to experience beauty. And I'm not trying to romanticize depression at all. It's a very dark thing. But it takes a certain element of beauty in your life to have to experience something so profoundly. And I think that's what depression is. It's a profound experience. And that can have major lessons and blessings later on down in your life. But in order to experience those, one must make space for the feelings that are already there before they try and conquer their life. Because in my experience, again, it doesn't necessarily work. Maybe you have different experience. That's fine. It's all valid, I'm sure. But as far as depression goes, I think a big mistake that we make is we try to fix it. We try to fix depression by doing things that we think are logical, and they are logical. But depression is not a logical issue. Trying to cure it through logic, through the intellect, doesn't work. Never has for me. I don't think it really is for you. It could be, of course. I don't know everything. But still, at the same time, it's an emotional thing, and it's something that is being asked of us to just relax into it and to hopefully find a place where we can feel like there's a connection again. Right? So depression is this lack of connection. So by focusing on your emotional self, you're focusing on a connection again to the deepest parts of yourself. And with time, not forever, but with time, there is a healthy, good chance that those feelings, those uncomfortable, sad feelings will essentially go away as a result of how much time, how much energy you've decided to dedicate throughout a day towards yourself. So there's lots to talk about with depression. This is just a video I was inspired to make because anytime that I feel depressed or down, I try to do something that try to make a video maybe that just might express that sadness within me, right? And because when you're depressed, you are looking for something to express, which is an inadvertent rhyme scheme, but nonetheless true. So when you're depressed because of our emotions haven't been free, they've been trapped within us for a long time. This pool metaphor I've been going with, but we need to express that. We need to express that. And expression isn't really logical, right? Expression is what you resonate with. Some people express themselves through creativity. Other people, slam poetry, writing, things like that. Other people express themselves through maybe something physical. They take up kickboxing or something, right? So the way to get out of your depression is basically twofold. You make space for yourself and you express what it is that you're making space for, okay? So I hope that those points make sense. I hope you guys are having a good Easter weekend. I think that's the holiday we're at now. I don't really know why we're still celebrating Easter, but I think that we are. I think that we're still going for it. So I hope that you guys are still going for it. I hope you guys are having a good weekend, and we'll talk to you guys soon. Okay, guys. Bye-bye.